Flags are right out.
I saw the flag right there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it
stand
under God,
under God, indivisible, yes, for all.
All right.
I started recording.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Okay, I want to just check one thing. We do have a chat from Ann saying that we can't hear anything yet. Oh, she says we're good. She said we're good. Okay, great. And I will do roll call. Trustee Carasali,
Here,
trustee Carey,
Here.
trustee Chaplin,
Here.
trustee Farahi,
here,
trustee Gianoli,
Here.
trustee Jay,
Mentally and physically here.
trustee Rose,
Present.
trustee Safraza,
Here.
and trustee Sperber.
Here.
All right, we're gonna go to item 2, which is public comment.
We have no public comment.
All right, no public comment. I'll go ahead and close the public comment period. And we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
Richard J. moved to accept the agenda presented. Get for being.
I know. Hi, everybody.
I know.
How's it going? It's nice to see you. Okay, we've got a motion by trustee Jay
I'll second.
and trustee Rose is the second. All those in favor of the agenda, say aye.
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 aye,
Gotta ask that. Hi, Ann, I remembered. Any opposed? Okay, approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2021 regular board meeting. Do you have any modifications to the minutes? Okay, motion? Trustee Perry, I heard one.
Motion to approve.
And who's the second? I heard somebody out there. Okay, trustee Farage. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
aye,
Any opposed? And motion carries. There's nobody opposed. And just make a point of order here. I just want to congratulate trustee Farahi on his nuptials. And,
I didn't.
congratulations, trustee.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to be there in person for the last couple months. I haven't seen all of you, but looking forward to celebrating in person with you soon.
All right, we're going to move on to the president and CEO report.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to all of you on Zoom, as well as all of you that are in person. Welcome to the Airport Fire Station. It's great to have you in person and to welcome you here to the fire station. My comments this morning are going to really focus on the recovery that we are seeing right now, and I've just continue to be amazed at the numbers, and I want to share a little bit of that with you this morning. You know, as we've talked about since spring break, it's been just a steadily increasing return of air travel, not only here, but across the country, but especially here. Our numbers are really just very impressive. So much so that our May forecast, we are revising it upward 40% to 144,000 passengers we expect this month.
Wow.
From
Nice.
103,000, which is where we forecast when we set this budget, which, you know, that was a long time ago and a lot has changed since then. And it's changing in a positive direction. In May alone, we're averaging 80 to 90% of our 2019 passenger levels. And when you look at the national numbers, they're closer to the 60 to 70% range. So we are really seeing an acceleration in our recovery. And that is exciting. A lot of it has to do with all the offerings that we have for leisure travelers, which we all thought leisure travel would lead the recovery, and it certainly is. And we are right on the forefront of that, along with beach markets and other popular places where Americans are vacationing again. So that means several other things. And I want to touch on in May, As you all are aware, we've seen a lot of air service return. And so here is what we have returning this month. Of course, as we've talked about, JSX is launching new routes to Oakland and Las Vegas beginning tomorrow. So that is something that we have been very excited about, to get that Oakland flight back and more service to Las Vegas. JetBlue nonstop to JFK returned on May 6th. United nonstop to Houston Bush Intercontinental Airport returns on May 28th. The Southwest nonstop to Chicago Midway returned on May 8th. In June, our seat capacity will be almost what it was in June of 2019. And in July, we will be back to full capacity of where we were 2 years ago. And, you know, all of that is with a big caveat. Airline schedules still are volatile and they change rapidly. But as things stand today, in August, we will exceed that seat capacity. So a really great story from the airlines for our region is something many airports were worried about in kind of the height of this pandemic. How long would it take to get the air service back that we used to have? And many were thinking years or months, and we've got it all back in basically 90 days. And so we're grateful for that. Now we have to perform, and we're working hard on that as we talked at the workshop. Encouraging people to get back in the air, but as you talk about passenger numbers, I think they are, whether or not we encourage. There's a lot of travel occurring. So inside the terminal building, the recovery is also continuing. I'm really pleased to report that yesterday, Pete's Coffee Pre-Security reopened for the first time since March of 2020. And in about 45 minutes, at 10 a.m., the Mountain Home Diner will reopen for lunch and dinner. It is also been closed since March of 2020. These are really important pre-security offerings. We've heard loud and clear as passengers return and from our employees across the airport that those pre-security locations are important, and having that amenity is really important. Also opening pre-security retail, Silver State, Harley Davidson, the PGA shop are all getting opened again. We're extending their hours. And Brighton and No Boundaries post-security locations are reopening on Saturday, May 22nd. As we talked about with you, we set a goal for having everything reopened on Saturday, May 22nd. And I just want to express our deep appreciation to all of our concessionaire partners. It is a challenge right now to get reopened again. It's been a long haul. Some of these storefronts have been dark for 15 months. And it's a real challenge to get employees back. They all committed to meeting this goal. They see our business coming back, and they're trying to get employees back into the workforce so they can be open for those hours and provide those amenities. And so we're just really appreciative of the partnership we have with every single concessionaire partner that we have, and I wish them great success as they reopen. We're encouraging all of our employees to get out there and spend some money now that we have these storefronts open, and certainly our passengers will as well. So that is the story this month, Madam Chair, is the recovery is roaring. Everything is coming back. All the airport that I hope to see someday when I stepped into this job is beginning to appear, and it's really exciting. So that concludes my remarks. Madam Chair.
Question on the concessionaires, and I've spoken to you about this. I'd like to report next meeting, because we did allocate some funds to some of our concessionaires on the CARES Act, and I was reading what the intent of those funds were last night in past minutes, and actually myself, Trustee Rose, and Trustee Sperber had made it very clear when we allocated those funds to make sure that got to our local tenants here at the airport. And I've been made aware recently that some of our folks haven't received the benefit of that. So I just want to get an update on that next month. And I'd like a full report on that brought to the board, because I want to make sure that that is happening for our local tenants who, by the way, stood by us during this horrible pandemic, not to mention did what we asked them to do as concessionaires stay open, at their quite frankly, their detriment, throwing out food, having to reduce food costs because of obviously the traffic in the pandemic. So I want to bring that back to the board and make sure that the people, our local folks, those funds that were were supposed to be used to assist them are ending up in their hands. And I know, Mr. CO, you're on that. I brought it up in this report and I bring it up again in the budget. So I just wanted to bring that.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. I'm happy to address that right now, but we will absolutely bring it back to full story next month. We are still processing, I think we got about $465,000, as I recall, through the CRISA program directly to our concessionaires. We have not paid out any of that yet because you have to divvy that up equally following FAA rules, and they are still trying to figure out exactly how we should allocate it. We have a unique concessionaire aspect here with gaming, which is unique to 2 airports in Nevada and maybe Atlantic City. And the FAA wasn't thinking about that. So we have a plan that we would like to move forward with. We're working with them. They have to approve our plan. We'll bring that back to you next month. These questions need to get answered because the concessionaires deserve the relief for sure. And we will detail exactly where it's going. And, we'll go from there.
And that was actually part of our motion. I went back and reviewed the minutes last night. So I just want to make sure for corporate, when we do the corporate, and I know our attorney and mentioned at the time too, and it just, I don't know. I just want to make sure those funds are going to where they should be, the past funds that we have paid. So, Trustee Jay.
Yeah, Darren, thank you. Great report. It's so exciting. Jennifer and I belong to a group, called Executive Association of Reno. And we're constantly reporting this news to them. And I tell you, the enthusiasm is great. I do want to do 2 things. I want to shout out Darren right now in a very positive note. We had a situation where a member of the CIA, a good friend of mine, Jennifer knows him quite well, he'd gone through TSA. They took his CPAP machine out of his bag for inspection. No big deal. They forgot to put it back in. He arrives into Boston with no CPAP machine and is freaking out. I called Darren within 5 or 10 minutes. He not the only hunted it down, figuring out ways to get it to him right away. We got it to him right away. And this person is just ecstatic. And this will be a future hangar tenant once we have more hangars open. So Darren, great job. That is, stories like that don't often get told about the level of customer service that we give. And we need to reach out and say thank you and share that. So Jennifer, I shared that with about 100 people. So job well done. Second question is, numbers are just fantastic. How's this comparing to other airports right now? I would imagine we have to be like on the top.
Thank you for that question, Trustee Jay. We are definitely well above average. When you look at the national average for the return of passenger traffic, they are somewhere between 60 to 70, 75% of 2019 numbers as a national average. There are leisure markets that are running at the top of that pack. We are among them. The Florida markets are running really well. There are a lot of people are going to Florida on vacation. So, as California has reopened, those markets are starting to recover faster, especially Southern California. And then there's a lot of the Northeast, I would say, is lagging behind. The Midwest, not seeing the same return that we are, but everybody is seeing improvement. I mean, just people everywhere are trying to travel, but we are grateful that we are well ahead of the average and hope to stay there. And I think, over the past 9 months, we've been more like 10% ahead. So we're actually picking up some ground right now with the acceleration of the recovery.
Excellent.
Nobody knows how long it will last, but we'll take it for as long as.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Trustee Rose.
Super quick question on the concessionaires. I'm just wondering, do you think that their primary challenge is staffing workforce, or do you think their primary challenge right now is financial?
It depends on who you ask, I think. We are still hearing a strong financial need from even the largest operators that the last 12 months has wreaked havoc on their balance sheets. And they need continued relief for as long as we were able to provide it. They're also pounding the table across the country that they're unable to get people to come back to work. And so the biggest challenge here is that our local leaders, concessionaires, want to reopen, they're excited to reopen, they're struggling to get people back. And so we have limited hours in some situations because they can only get somebody to work a store or provide cook or cleaning services, during peak hours. So we are hopeful as the summer progresses and more Americans come off the sideline back to work. But we're also competing across the board. You see opponent signs everywhere. I sit on the chamber board. This was a topic last night at our board meeting, what our members are seeing. So it's definitely both. I think the most pressing issue right now is workforce, but the financial damage is long-term. It'll take quite a long time to get back to a position for many of them.
I think somebody told me yesterday that Taco Bell's up to $17 an hour.
At some point, it doesn't even matter the number that is being offered. It's just people have so many choices for jobs right now.
We saw a strong jobs number this morning, 444,000 people added, which we needed that.
Yeah.
But it's still, you're absolutely right. I mean, people are still continuing to get benefits, and so they're just not entering the workforce. But even when they do, we're going to have a labor shortage.
It's a challenge for sure.
Any questions for Darren from the board out in Zoom land? Trustee Farabi, Gerber, Caroselli.
Oh, good, thank you.
Okay. Hi, Marty. So we've got, I just want to say, under report comments and reports, I want to thank Lori and staff, Brian, Tina, everybody, Darren, for the awesome retreat. And Lori, thank you. I mean, just putting that all together, you're amazing. I just want to thank the entire team. I've gotten so much positive feedback on our retreat. It was great to do it with the RSCA. I hope that continues into the future. But I just want to say thank you to all the board members and the staff for putting on such an awesome retreat.
Well, it was a great vision too that you had, so it was
Thank you.
fun pulling that together.
It was really good. Thank you very much. And any other board updates, comments? Carol, see you in person, anything from the lake side?
Yeah, there's some stuff up there for sure. I don't know whether you saw the press release yesterday, but we canceled the lights on the lake fireworks yesterday afternoon at the Douglas Visitors Authority board meeting. We were the only ones hanging out there that, on the cancellation. The rest of the lake had canceled beforehand, and the reason that we waited so long is because our relationship with the fireworks provider is pretty deep. So we had the longest window to do it. It was a hard decision by the board, but as we move into this kind of new place, working much closer with all of our agencies around the lake, we felt that it was the right thing to do this year. Talking about human resources, the land management group they're in the same kind of position. Inviting more than 100,000 people onto those beaches for, the fireworks that night was a little bit scary for us to think about, and not even understanding what, how many times did we put on our mask and not put on our mask and figure out where we could go and what we could do over the last year, and we just don't understand that. So it was kind of a big thing. The two, Mont Bleu is now Bally's. El Dorado is now Caesars. We're playing.
You need a scorecard.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some, nuances there, but the good news is that they're all looking at some new infusion of capital, so we'll see some improvements in those properties. And then the event center, we have a lot of dirt that we're moving right now, and we're moving all the dirt to Edgewood for their new project. There's going to be cabins, freestanding cabins there, luxury cabins, and then the beach club. So we're moving over 300,000 cubic, whatever that. You guys know what that means. And so we're digging a big hole. Digging a big hole. And we're on schedule.
Richard, how's the stock market doing today?
Actually, it's really strong. with the jobs numbers that are coming in right now. We had a little bit of sell-off last couple of days, but you buy on the lows and sell on the highs.
Good advice, Richard.
Any other board comments out there? Any reports? Okay, we'll move on. Recognitions and items of special interest. We do have some special recognitions today of employees with over 20 years of service. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We're pleased to recognize two of our retirees this month. First, Airfield Maintenance Superintendent Scott Hartman was hired August 8th, 1983, and retired April 9th, 2021. Scott was a fixture in this organization for over 37 years, beginning his career as a laborer in the summer of 1983. Scott spent 19 years as a laborer before being promoted to a management position, where he was for another 18 years helping lead our maintenance teams. Under his positive leadership, Scott developed the Airfield Maintenance Group into a cohesive and efficient team that was recognized as the recipient of the 2018 President's Award. Scott leaves a real legacy here at the airport, and how he's able to literally write heavy equipment bid specifications and always be someone you can also count on. Really was able to connect with his teams. He never hesitated to offer his help when asked, and always volunteered for his services and expertise. He will be certainly missed, but after 37 years, I think if anybody's earned a retirement, it's certainly Scott. Also this month, recognizing 20 years more of service, retiring Victoria Colborn. Victoria was facilities custodian, hired in September of 1994 and retired April 1st, 2021. She served for more than 26 years of dedicated service to this airport. Victoria was part of the team responsible for keeping our airport something that is often marked on customer surveys and received the most valuable team award for teamwork as well. Victoria just did a great job helping lead our custodial staff for 26 years and being on the front lines, never more so than this past year. So our deep appreciation to both Scott and Victoria for their service. It really just speaks volumes about the organization when you have people working for that many years in public service, and I'm just very happy for them and proud of their service. And I'm sure that completes this month's recognitions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I want to thank, that's a lot of service, and thank our airport custodial staff. And they're not here today, are they?
No, they are not here today. I'm not sure.
Well, please thank them.
We
on behalf of
absolutely
the
have
board.
them.
All right, we're going to move on to our once a year, under statute to adopt the budget. I have a script from Ann. Pursuant to the legislative enactment creating the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, the airport authority is required to comply with the provisions of the Local Government Budget and Financing Act. This is the time to set forth the public hearing required by that act. Notice has been given as required by law. So at this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing, and I believe Randy and Alex are going to make a presentation. And before they do, just questions from the board. I know the finance committee, is there anyone in this room who hasn't seen the budget presentation, or any of our board members who haven't seen the budget presentation?
So Chair Sparrow, just to be clear, we saw the proposed budget at the retreat, and then at the finance committee meeting, they showed us the changes that they were proposing from the original one that we saw. That's what we've seen so far.
All right. Who's up, Randy or Alex? You see Alex there. Good morning.
I am up. Good morning.
Alex.
Good morning, Madam Chair, trustees, Mr. Griffin, staff, and all of the people on the phone. For the record, Alex Kovac, Manager of Finance, with the presentation of the proposed budget for fiscal year 21-22. I would like to just highlight some of the changes starting off that we have made, as Ms. Rose or Trustee Rose had mentioned, from the workshop that we had with the board on April 30th. Budget overview, total revenues currently $72.1 million. That is a $220,000 increase from what we have discussed at the workshop. Operating revenues 48 million, non-operating revenues have increased to 24 million. Our operating expenses currently estimated at 49.9 million. That is a $238,000 increase compared to the workshop. Fixed assets remained at approximately $1 million. Capital improvement program has increased slightly by approximately 170,000. We had not made any changes to the passenger or overall airline traffic forecasted for next fiscal year. And plane passengers remain at 1.5 million and landed weight approximately 2.7 million pounds. These are some of the highlights of the adjustments that we have made since the workshop. Personnel services, salary increases, placeholder, as you all know, we continue the work with contract negotiations for the 3 bargaining units, that is fire, police, and Teamsters. We're getting very close to reaching an agreement there. However, we were able to build in some salary increases into the budget at this time. There were also 3 battalion chiefs added to the budget for a total annual cost of $628,000. Again, this is total, so the net increase compared to the current year budget is right around $263,000. And I will talk about both of these items a little bit later in the presentation. Purchase services, an increase of approximately $120,000. A workspace study analysis was added for $100,000 and an increase in purchase services for the HR department, specifically for a consultant, an addition of $20,000. Our administrative expenses have decreased by approximately $220,000. That is due to the better than expected results that we're seeing for liability and property insurance. Typically, the insurance program is brought to the board in the month of May. However, due to the issues with working from home, COVID-19 related difficulties, obtaining quotes from all of the insurance companies, we're forced to bring that to you in June. So we will have a detailed discussion on the proposed insurance program for liability and property at the June board meeting and also the finance committee. Capital projects, we have increased that by adding 2 additional projects. One is the repair to the clerestory wall, that is where the sky bridge connects to the main terminal building. There were some issues discovered there, and it's estimated to cost us $70,000 to make those repairs. There's also an administrative workspace updates or upgrades capital project that was added for approximately $100,000. That will be depending on the workspace study and analysis that you see here in the purchase services area. Some of the key metrics as we look into next fiscal year, there's no real changes as you look at this slide compared to what we had discussed at the workshop. However, some of the things that I would just like to highlight due to the increase in expenses, the number here in red, which would be the normal cost per employment for our signatory airlines if we were not going to use any CARES Act, that would be $13.61. Now, due to the fact that we're applying CARES Act to be able to maintain our signatory airline rates and charges flat, that is brought down to $9.57. Our landing fees would normally be $4.31, again, keeping it flat compared to the last couple of years at $3.23. And the average terminal rental rate should have been $83 compared to the $55.31 that we're able to achieve using the CARES and CRISA Act. Moving forward, I would like to cover some of the revenues. As I mentioned earlier, the total revenues estimated for next fiscal year, approximately $72.1 million. One increase I would like to bring to your attention here compared to the workshop is the CARES and CRISA funds that we anticipate on using next year. currently estimated at 11.7 million. That's an increase from the 11.3 that we were thinking we're going to need on April 30th when we had the discussion at the workshop. Operating revenues, approximately 48.1 million, an increase of 10.5 million from the current year budget. You see here increases both in the airline and non-airline revenue categories. Both of those, the main reason for the increases that you see here is due to the increase in airline traffic. More in-plane passengers, obviously we're going to see more non-airline revenues. Also, in some cases, in some of the businesses, we are seeing an increase in the gross revenue per in-plane passenger, specifically in the car rental operations. Non-airline revenues, I mentioned this already at the workshop, and at the Finance Committee, my favorite chart of the presentation highlights the variety of non-airline revenue sources that we have. To bring your attention to the dark red and purple areas, those are the main revenue sources: parking with approximately 8.6 million annually, and auto rental also around 8.6 million total. However, what you see here in purple, that is strictly related just to the concession revenues. We also receive terminal rents and land rents from the car rental companies. Non-operating revenues, total of 24 million anticipated for next fiscal year. The only increase here compared to the workshop would be the CARES CRISA Act, now estimated at 11.7 million. Some of the expenses, starting off with operating expenses for next fiscal year, anticipated at 49.9 million, a $5.5 million increase from the current fiscal year. And going forward, I will discuss some of these increases by expense category. Personnel services forecasted at 32.9 million for next fiscal year. As you can see here, 66% of our overall operating and maintenance expenses are related to personnel expenses. It is a 1.8 million increase from the current year budget. We propose to have 265.5 positions funded, FTE or full-time equivalent, next fiscal year, maintaining 10 approved positions frozen or unfunded. There are some new positions, as I mentioned, the battalion chiefs, 3 of those additional positions, and an accounting technician. That's also a new position going into next fiscal year. Utilities and communications anticipated at 2.8 million for next year. Highly unusual, an actual decrease of $40,500 compared to the current year. That is due to the decrease in rates and also some of the usage that we have seen in the terminal building. Purchase services, an increase of 7.7 million. We discussed at the workshop some of the reasons for this. I mentioned the 2 additional items that we added since the workshop. That is the workspace study and then also the contracted services for human resources. Materials and supplies, 2.7 million. No increase compared to the workshop. Administrative expenses, 3.8 million. This is where I made that change or a decrease in the expenses anticipated for the cost of insurance, specifically liability and property insurance. Moving forward, I would like to just highlight some of the key budget items by division. These are predominantly increases compared to the current fiscal year budget. So these are mostly additional items as we look into next fiscal year. We have the 3 fire battalion chiefs for a total of 628,000. A couple of clarifying comments here, if I may. We have not increased the overall number in approved positions proposed for next fiscal year. So what we have done here is reclassify or repurpose some of the existing positions The Vice President of Air Service that is currently frozen and unfunded in the current fiscal year was repurposed and moved to the fire department. The current Deputy Fire Chief that is vacant, that is also reclassified. And there was a firefighter position that we have added at mid-year. So all of those three combined are the three new battalion chief positions for the net increase of approximately $263,000. Fire overtime is estimated for $300,000 next year. That is a $120,000 increase compared to the current year budget. That is based on schedules, anticipated training needs, and so forth for the fire department. A new software for Part 139 compliance was also added for next year for a total cost of $300,000. We have 5 police vehicles that we plan on purchasing next fiscal year. 4 of those are replacements, with 1 additional K9 vehicle that we plan on adding to the fleet. There's a security assessment that is planned for $49,000, a defibrillator for the fire department, police body cameras, new furniture for security break room, and a paint striping machine for the Stead Airport, anticipated at $24,500. Mr. Griffin, any additional comments you would like to make at this point related to the battalion chiefs?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you, Alex. This is not something that we had talked about as a board, so I wanted to just add a little bit of context here. Some of you have met our new fire chief, Dale Carnes, as you came in today. And in his first few weeks, Chief Carnes identified for me that this would be a #1 priority for him. This is something I know this organization and board discussed a little over a year ago when applying for a SAFER grant, the idea of adding the battalion chief each of the 3 shifts. So this is the senior leader for each shift who is here 24 hours a day, responding with our crew, providing senior leadership for our mutual aid responders, and in the incident itself, and supporting our captains who are primarily tasked with leading the attack on whatever the emergency is. And so he put together an excellent business case. I support it. It's not unusual by any stretch of the imagination. And we are in a unique place right now where we have a vacant deputy fire chief position. We have a vacant firefighter position that I added last December. So we are repurposing both of those as Alex described, and then adding or transferring 1 position that was vacant. The vice president of air service has been vacant for, I think, 5 years. So really, it doesn't really matter what the position is, it's that we had a frozen position we could allocate. So we're doing that. This will allow him to go out and really increase that staffing model to provide the maximum support to our firefighters on the front lines and to our shift captains. So I support this. I think it's a great opportunity to take advantage of it with other vacancies so that it reduces the cost associated with it. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that if there are any.
Trustee Rose, can you just further explain how 3 fire chiefs would cover 3 shifts 7 days a week? I don't understand how their shifts work, so it's just an honest question.
Sure. So the fire department is set up on a 3-shift system, A, B, and C shifts. And each shift has an assigned complement of firefighters and an assigned captain. They basically live here and work their shift, and then they're off for a couple of days, and then the next shift is on. And so you're together continually during that time period. So while it says chief, they're not administrative hours. They will be here that 48-hour shift, sleeping and eating with the crew and responding with the crew. So the duties of the deputy fire chief, which is an administrative role, 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, will be divided up between these 3. So, you know, a battalion chief will have responsibility for training or inspection. So those duties have to be absorbed by these. But Chief Carnes has a good plan to do that. And it really just adds a senior leadership position that's here at the airport 24 hours a day. And as we get busier going forward, it'll be a valuable addition. It is not an abnormal staffing model at all. It's what I've seen in other places. So I wasn't surprised when I saw it and talked about here. I wasn't that surprised when Chief came asking for it early on in his tenure. We just happened to be at the right place in the budgeting process. and with a couple of vacancies where the ability to financially do it is greater than it might have otherwise been. So a number of things kind of fell into place there.
So the battalion chiefs don't have anything to do with the increase in overtime?
No,
They're not
so
related.
that is,
Okay.
that is different. That is a function of, we talked about overtime a lot in my early months here. We have made great progress in getting better management of it. But when you look at our past history, it accounts for the vacancy rate. The firefighters go on vacation, they are out sick, they get injured. And every time something like that happens, it triggers overtime. And that's just a function of the contract. That's not unique to this fire department either. So this is it's more conservative. I hope we come in under this, and Chief knows that. He's probably over there listening to me. But I want to make sure that we're fair in our allocation of money for overtime, and hopefully we can do better than that by keeping our staff model in good shape.
And I think just to elaborate on that, the overtime issue, I think Darren went through it and saw historically what the usage is. So I think we were underestimating an issue of fairness. We weren't putting those dollars associated with how much overtime has been generated for that category. Trustee Jay.
Yeah, thank you. I totally get safety is paramount. Safety has to be our number one goal up here. And I'm looking at this, and I've been thinking about this last couple of days since we've had finance meeting. I'm thinking 300,000 overtime, 120,000 increase. Would we be better off to hire another staff firefighter to help with that? Number two is I'm not seeing any overtime for police, and in my opinion, police and fire are very equal. They keep our airport safe. So are police adequately staffed? Do we need to look at staffing levels for fire to bring them in line to, 120,000 increase, that was 180. So that's about a 65% increase. And I get that we didn't look at maybe the correct numbers in the past were accounting for that. But would we be better off to hire another person to perhaps bring that overtime down?
Thank you, Trustee Jay. I would say that is something we're always looking at. The challenge with fire is that in order to really decrease the overtime on any shift, you have to hire a person for each shift because they live here. And so, you're looking at the 120, that's the cost of an FTE, right? You're close. It's how that overtime occurs. And that even if I hired another firefighter, which was part of my goal last December, was to at least bring the number down some. You're never going to eliminate it because of the way the schedules fall. And then when somebody goes on vacation, somebody has to backfill for them for the entire shift, which is a couple of days. So I won't take that off the table, but I would say, we're going to try and see how this year goes. Hopefully we've done a better job of budgeting. We're going to do a better job of managing the absences and try and keep our firefighters healthy and see how we do. And we may get to that point, but I honestly need more time in this model to see how it progresses. And with our new chief and his experience in managing overtime, I want to give him a chance to also really control this number. But you never take that off the table. As far as police goes, while we often think of them as the same, it's a very different staffing model because they work with normal shift.
They're not here.
Okay, not here 24, 48 hours at a time. And so while you may miss somebody, it's for a day, it's an 8-hour shift, and their overtime is much more stable. And there's no change of significance here. And their staffing model is also really stable. So grateful for that. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions by the board? I do have one. Do we have the chief on? Darren, do you have questions?
Absolutely. Chief should be listening in. Brian, would you go see if he's over there asking to join us?
And then while we're waiting him on, just throw a couple out there. Alex, the position, I forgot what it is. Oh, it's been a while. You're in the vice president position. Do we know what the salary savings on that is, Alex?
I apologize, Madam Chair. There's a lot of noise and I did not catch that question.
Do you know what the salary savings is from the vice president's position being eliminated or vacant?
Thank you. That position actually has been frozen and unfunded for a number of years, so there's not really any savings reclassifying that position. just because it hasn't been funded in a number of years now.
I'm sorry, Alex, for the executive vice president position.
Dean Schultz's former position, Alex, the savings from eliminating that.
I'll just see that.
I would have to take a look at that. That is definitely substantial savings coming from that position, but I can take a detailed look at that and come back to the board with the answer there, because we would have to look at not just the salary, but also including PERS and everything else for a total realistic savings number there.
Can you give me that information, Alex? I mean, it doesn't have to be today, but please give, that's an important number and
Absolutely.
keeping that position open and just, because it is quite a big savings, I believe, and I think our CEO has been very prudent with the executive staff and how he's done that. And I don't want that to be overlooked in this budget, because that's a big savings. Hi, Chief, how are you?
Good, ma'am. Thank you.
The battalion chiefs, and the reason why I just want some information on those, maybe a little more detailed, and certainly happy to have you here, because there's been talks in the region potentially of the regionalization talks again. And I know we have automatic aid and mutual aid with our partners in the cities, and I just want to make sure, and I know you just got here, and those discussions are starting to take place, but we're not bringing on executive staff only to have that until for a future, potentially mutual aid or automatic aid regionalization model. So I just wanted to check on that, especially because it is an expenditure for us and I support it. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on those positions.
Yes, ma'am. These three chiefs would not be what I consider executive staff. Actually, I'm foregoing the additional executive staff, the deputy position, because these battalion chiefs, one of their key roles is as a fireground commander or an incident commander, something we really don't have right now. We ask our captains to fulfill three roles: the task level of firefighting, the tactical level of commanding their companies, and then the strategic level of being an incident commander. And if you're dealing with a major airliner crash, from my experience, and or a major hangar fire, that's an unrealistic expectation of our officers. We're setting them up for failure, and we're putting our personnel at a very increased risk as far as safety wise, not to mention any passengers on the aircraft. So by having a shift battalion chief, we now 24/7 have an incident commander on scene. And it means within a matter of just 2 or 3 minutes of us getting on scene, as operations and PD arrives, we also have unified command, just like that. And because the reality of a major crash here is, even though we're surrounded by the city of Reno, city of Sparks, and Truckee Meadows, for them to get on scene en masse where they will make a difference and have some of their chiefs present in the event of my absence to establish a true incident command, you're looking at least 15 to 20 minutes. And that's from experience. That's not theory. Okay, so it's critical for us to have an incident commander there right away. That strategic level command is critical for the safety of our personnel and the efficiency of their roles. It also, like I said, it frees up our captains to be much more effective captains, company officers. And we're only asking them to do 2 roles instead of 3 simultaneously. In addition to that, you also have that direct mentorship and development of our company officers for good succession planning as time goes on and we find ourselves needing additional chief officers and fill vacancies and so on. And then because they are chief officers, I will have the ability to do some division of labor with certain administrative roles. Again, since we're foregoing the deputy chief for now and for the foreseeable future.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. CEO. I just hearing it from you, that 20-minute lag, that's very important. I mean, we've heard in the past, that happens if there's an aircraft, and especially with gas, plane. So I really appreciate the follow-up on that. And then just one more quick question on the fire truck itself. I just want to make sure we do the one we're christening today. We have all the equipment that we need, as pushing Mr. CEO to get that fire truck here And I just want to make sure it's put properly, we don't need to put any more in the budget, make sure everything is needed on that track. Because that's what we're here for today, and I know that I pushed the CEO and the previous chief administration to get that fire truck there. I just want to make sure it's got everything that's needed, okay?
So we are waiting on radios. They have already been paid for, Madam Chair.
Okay.
We're waiting on them to be installed. Sierra Electronics is a little backed up and they're waiting for the products to arrive. We are, however, ready to roll with just our portable radios. We have portable tower radios. We can make it work.
Okay, I just don't want anyone to be shy if there's something needed on that truck. So I appreciate
We're good to go, but thank you for asking.
And thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the board, for the chief?
Good job.
Thank you, sir.
We'll see you in a little while. Any other questions on this slide for the board?
It's just really exciting to finally get to the title sheets. We've been talking about it for a long time, and I'm super excited to see them up there.
I've got one quick question.
Sure.
Like the fact, new police vehicles, and I know we've kind of been talking, and I don't know, when we buy vehicles, do we have to go to like the state or something, or can we deal locally?
We will work through a local partner who piggybacks on a state contract, and the challenge right now is dealers can't get us those vehicles right away because of the semiconductor shortage. But we are already talking to them about our place in line, and I think they're gonna be ready to accept our order around August 1st. So the money is not the issue right now, it's literally the supply chain disruption. So, but yes, it goes through a local dealership that handles public procurement.
Because I really, and I think Chair, promoting already, the trustee reps and I feel the same way. The more business we can do locally, I'm just so about that, because they're always here for us. We need to make sure that we're reciprocating, both ways. So I love the fact that deal locally. Thank you.
And I was gonna ask that about the police vehicles, getting our order, and joiner, maybe the city Bryn Sparks, the county, if we could jump in on that. And I know that the shortage and everything's taking time. But I just want to take this opportunity to thank staff. This budget went through and you saw the departments, the FTEs. This was so detailed on the budget, who's getting what. And I want to say, I think this board, we put public safety, Trustee Perry, at the top of our list. And I think this budget reflects that with fire, also the police and their equipment. So I want to say thank you very, very much to our staff and our CEO for when you came on, you said that was one of our top priorities, and you made it happen. So, and staff, so thank you. All right, keep going, Alex. Is there anything left?
There is, Madam Chair. Thank you. I will continue. Moving on to planning and infrastructure. A couple of items to highlight here is, first of all, we have the land site planning study that was actually started or is being started in the current fiscal year. The total estimated cost here is $300,000, $100 being spent in the current year, and $200, or the majority of the work, is going to be done next fiscal year. Engineering is also asking for a flash study estimated at $100,000. There's the water truck that you may remember we discussed at mid-year. However, we had some difficulty being able to purchase that. That will be used by airfield maintenance and also by the ARF or the fire folks for water tender, a backhoe tractor for airfield maintenance, and an air compressor for the building maintenance. As you can see here, everybody's getting something. Finance and administration, IT, video, security equipment. There are a number of items here that I actually combined together for the total of $191,000. We talked about the accounting technician. That's a new position. And there's also a stretch wrap machine for the warehouse. The majority of the increases in the commercial business division come from or are related to air service. You see here air service studies or surveys for a total of $250,000, air service development, $150,000, We're increasing the monies allocated to the Air Service Incentive Program. That's paid for fuel tax or through fuel tax funding. They're also added Air Service Information Data Access Services. That's a purchase service or a contract for approximately $54,000. Economic Development, a land development consultant for opportunities that may arise next fiscal year, and also Economic Development, $50,000, again, for some of those unanticipated situations that hopefully we're going to have next fiscal year. There's a facility assessment for the car rental service center, and currently anticipated around $20,000 cost for next year. And I grouped here together all of the GA facility improvements, specifically capital projects. So these are not regular O&M operating expenses. These are relatively large capital projects that we're looking for in next fiscal year, $701,000. Marketing and public affairs, air service advertising campaign, an increase of $280,000. We're planning on renewing our website, costing $200,000. And then there's also community outreach, $137,000. I would just like to make a comment based on the discussion that we had at the Finance Committee that this is not related specifically to the outreach community or campaign. This is a separate item, and it's a combination of expenses totaling the $137,000.
I'm sorry to interrupt, and I know this was a discussion at the finance board, and Brian, can we have that come back to us on the plan? I know we're allocating the budget today. Can we have that whole marketing plan come back to the board so we can see that and approve it? Because I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Some of the things that.
I don't think they're done with it yet. You're not done with it yet.
No, we're in an interesting stage right now, Madam Chair, where we're budgeting the money, but where that will be allocated exactly, what goes to TV, what goes to digital, we're still talking about that. But we have a pretty solid idea, but happy to come back at any time to the board and lay it all out.
Okay.
And the community outreach, what goes to the air races, that's mostly air races,
Okay.
but happy to walk you through that at any time.
Yeah, I just think because there's a lot of, we've done this in the past, so we could have that come to us on what that campaign is going to look like and how that's going to do, that'd be great.
All right, moving on. Human resources related expenses. We plan on restarting the internship program, anticipated to cost $40,000. Labor relations consultant, I mentioned at the beginning that we added $20,000 for a total of 30. As all of you know, we're looking to extend the current agreements with our bargaining units by only one fiscal year. So these would be 4 new negotiations that we were going to enter in next fiscal year, and that's the reason we have added this additional funding there. Overall organizational training is also increasing $39,000. Equipment, fixed assets. We have talked about these at the workshop. No change, no increase here. Total estimated cost of approximately $1 million. $556,000 increase from the current fiscal year. Just to remind the board, these are items that cost over $5,000 with a useful life of over a year. Same requirement here for capital projects. However, anything over $300,000, we amortize those over the useful life and build that into the airline rates and charges. So if we have large capital projects, they are not going to impact rates in that 1 year that we have them completed. The chart here on the pie chart on the left-hand side shows you the grouping by cost center. The increase compared to the workshop is in the other cost center, now totaling $1.9 million. Debt service, total annual debt service, $2.3 million. As you know, we have a thankfully a very low debt profile of $8.15 per enplaned passenger. As you see here, it's a very favorable comparison if we compare with other US airports. This is based on a study by Moody's. We plan on using the CARES CRISA funds to pay for the annual debt service for fiscal year 21-22. Some of the concluding comments, we're obviously optimistic looking into next fiscal year. We're very much encouraged by the increase in passenger traffic. We have a balanced budget. We have added some personnel, built in some salary increases for the represented bargaining units. We were also able to bring back some of the costs that we were sort of forced to cut out of the current fiscal year. We had to eliminate over $8 million in the current fiscal year from the requested budget. We were able to add some of those back, both in operating and capital budget. We were able to achieve flat signatory airline rates and charges. I know that there was some discussion about actually reducing rates at this time, allocate more CARES CRISA Act funds to be able to achieve that. Recommendation at this point is to reassess at mid-year, take a look at passenger traffic, overall airline traffic at RNO, reassess how we're doing with expenses, revenues, and possibly at that time, reduce the rates for the second part of the year, so starting January 1st. We always strive for a competitive cost per enplanement, approximately $9.60, $9.57 to be more exact, that we're anticipating next year. I mentioned the use of CARES CRISA Act, approximately $11.7 million that we anticipate needing at this time to be able to maintain those signatory airline rates and charges flat. Recommended motion, it is hereby moved that the Board of Trustees adopts the budget of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority for the fiscal year 2021-22. And Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation out here in Zoom world, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Alex. Any questions from the board, Trustee Perry?
Thank you. I just wanted to inquire, the concessions that were made by managers and department managers, are those being restored to their salaries? What's the current
Madam Chair? Thank you, Vice Chair Carey. All of the salary reductions were eliminated on February 1st for everybody across the organization. The furlough program ended and the executive team salary reductions were made.
Thanks.
Trustee Rose?
I just wanted to make a comment, not so much a question. And I definitely don't want to beat a dead horse, but I saw a lot of things up there, like the security break room furniture and changes that will be made based on the office study. There might be changes in there. I just really want to strongly encourage our staff and our CEO to use as many locally owned companies as humanly possible. A lot of this stuff is under the dollar amount, so it doesn't come back to the board. Anytime you need an interior designer, your website design, there's a lot of things up there and a lot of things I didn't see. Also, our community came off a hard year, not that we shouldn't do it in good years too, but I really believe the strength of the economic condition of our community directly affects our airport. And if we want people to have the money to fly, we have to provide them with work. So I just want to say, I really hope that we'll take every opportunity possible to support any locally owned company that we possibly can through this budget.
Well said.
Agree.
Any other comments? Trustee Sperber?
No, but Ms. Rose, I totally agree with you that I need for us to continue doing it. If you remember, that was my concern on something we were using local and giving, even like when we were talking about the monies, we need to consider local, we need to protect our locals. And, so when we agree on things in this room, on the budget. I want to make sure that staff enacts things that these are the policies set by this board.
Trustee Faragi?
Thank you. Darren, as we look at some of these areas that we're struggling with staff now, are there opportunities or new technologies that we can be including in the budget, should be looking at to potentially make the staff that we already have more efficient? I know TSA is obviously one of the main pinch points, but and maybe a foolish question, but is there additional money we should put in technology to make the current staff more efficient?
Madam Chair, thank you, Trustee Barone, for that question. And that's a hard question to answer. I think we're always looking for what are the technologies that we're seeing evolve as a result of the pandemic that can help increase efficiency. I feel pretty confident that this is a big budget. Our appetite is significant here, and it gives us a lot of room to maneuver. And that if we identify those technologies that can help our maintenance teams or help our administrative workforce, or even something that might benefit a tenant, that we have room in this budget to make those decisions, or I'll come back to this board asking for more to really be able to do that, because you're exactly right, and that our reliance on people is as strong as ever, but we need to be looking for ways to improve efficiency, not necessarily eliminate jobs, but just try and get more done with every single person. And I want to commend this board for the $600,000 approval of our mobility initiative, which was to acquire laptops and docking stations for virtually our entire organization. That is making a huge difference. And that was money really well spent. That's a really good example of people's productivity from home. It is way beyond what any of us imagined. And deploying that technology enables us to virtually work from anywhere. And so that, I think Trustee Fry is a really good example, but we're continuing to reap those benefits, and I think we will continue to do so. And we will keep looking for ways. So it's kind of a non-answer to your question. I apologize for that, but I mean, it's the $1 million question. It's something we have to be thinking about every day and looking for those opportunities.
Thank you, Darren. I appreciate it. Is the technology that I've seen at some other airports, but and every time I ask, it seems like it's not being rolled out nationwide. But the scanner for the ID, as opposed to the customer having to present both their boarding pass and their ID. In some airports, they're just taking the ID, scanning it, and that's sufficient. And it seems much more efficient. Is that something that's a pilot program? It's not being rolled out everywhere. Is it something we can jump in line on?
Yes, sir. It is. Both Customs and Border Protection and TSA are piloting new technologies. They always start those pilots typically at large gateway hub airports. The idea is to go paperless, that you increase throughput if somebody doesn't have to dig around in their bag for an identification, that if they're already able to provide it with their phone or with the biometrics, simply looking at a camera. Those technologies are out there. Quite frankly, the technology is ahead of our processing systems. So I think those are great conversations that we'll be having, trying to get that type of technology deployed to airports that are not the large hubs is where the challenge hits us. But we have good friends in both those organizations. And I think airports our size actually are better places to trial those in many cases. And so I would say it's just a matter of time before we see those sort of technology advances here at RNO and at other airports our size. And I think coming out of the pandemic, we will see that start to accelerate. It, of course, slowed all of those efforts down, but I think you're going to start to see that come back now. So I'm a big supporter of those technology advancements.
Thank you. Well, if there's any way as a board we can help, or calls that we need to make, happy to be a part of those or to lead them, and we'll look for your direction on how to help bring some of those technologies to bear.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Trustee Caroselli? Any questions, comments?
This is Trustee Carousel. I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Chinoli?
No, I appreciate the discussion, and I agree with a lot of the things that have been said, and all the work that staff has done to pull this together with such a changing environment. So I'm good with that, and I totally support locals as well. Thank you.
Right, at this time, I'm gonna go out to members of the public. Where do we have any public comment?
We do not. I'm checking email and chats and we have no public comment.
I'm gonna ask again if there's any public comment, just unmute. Let the clerk know. I'm told to ask for public comment like 4 times. Ask, and ask.
Check each one of them out first, second, third.
Check them off. So we're just gonna wait 1 more minute and make sure, raise your hand, speak now. Okay, I'm not seeing any board, just want to confirm, no public comment.
Correct.
Okay, we're gonna close the public comment period at this time, and I will entertain a motion. And do you want to put that back on the screen, Alex, just so the board can see that proposed verbiage for the motion, please? There we go, thank you. All right, who's gonna make it?
I would be honored to make the motion to approve the budget as presented.
And you could just write it back first.
Or you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay, it is hereby moved that the Board of Trustees adopts the budget of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority for the fiscal year 2021-22.
Richard J, I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion by trustee Rose, second by trustee Jay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Great. Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Great job.
Good job.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on because we have a hard stop at 10:30. We're going to go to the adoption. Okay. And just for clarification, did that take care of 8.1 or do I need to do 8.2 and 8.3 now?
That took care of 8.2. You need to do 8.3.
Okay, 8.3. Okay, so we'll do, we need to read that into the record, the adoption? Or no? Or is it just?
You could just call for item 210520 regarding the rates and charges for fiscal year 21-22.
Okay, so you heard that. We're going to, this is board memo 2105-20, adoption of resolution number 551, amending resolution number 547, establishing the airport rates and charges for fiscal year 2021 through 2022 pursuant to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. Move for adoption, please. All right, trustee Perry.
Move for adoption as stated.
Second. All right. We have for adoption in second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to consent items. Any board members have any consent items they want to pull? Okay. For finance, I just have one and quickly, that would be item number 9.2. So we'll go ahead and pull 9.2. So can we get a motion to approve 2105-21, 21-05-24, 21-05-25, 21-05-26, and 21-05-22.
2.2 is separate.
Yes, good to know.
I'm sorry, that's right. Okay, so through 2.6. Do you have a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent with all those items. Second? All right, trustee Carey, second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All right, do we have the representatives here for item 9.2?
Yes.
CBE Insurance Group.
Sorry, let me promote Julie. I'm sorry. we go.
Hi, Julie, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Just a couple questions on this, and it wasn't email. I went through this with agenda review. It's more procedurally what their role is as far as when it comes to an employee going out on workman's comp. So how is this? What is their exact role in what we're approving today?
And I'm sorry that I had to turn up my volume just a tad. You said regarding QBE Insurance Group.
Correct, for the workers.
Yes.
I know, I know the reason why we're gonna work harder to get more bids in the future. That isn't my question. My question is, what is the role this group does when somebody goes out on workman's comp? Explain the process to me. Who is
Absolutely.
on these claims? Because we've had issues with this. Who's following up on these claims to make sure that we're getting people rehabilitated and back to work? And what role does this group play in doing that?
Absolutely. For the record, Julie Sternberg, Labor Relations and Benefits Manager. And yes, so QBE Insurance Group, they, because we would be fully insured, they are the claims carrier. They manage all of the claims. And so if an employee has an injury and once we complete the paperwork to file, that's who we send it to. A claims examiner is immediately assigned to that case. They reach out to me. I am the coordinator for workers' compensation, and I manage kind of that liaison between the carrier and our employees. And so they immediately reach out to me. We have a discussion about the details of the claim. We talk about, is the employee, what is the medical certification indicated? Is the employee able to return to work in a light duty position? If the employee is not, we arrange for temporary total disability payments. So the carrier actually process that payment and pays the employee. And then they are monitoring and working. They also have clinical nurses on their staff that review each medical doctor's notes, and they review them to make sure that they're getting the appropriate care. If they need to, a lot of times our initial medical provider will refer that individual to a specialist. And so then I will work with the carrier to ensure that we get the proper specialist. The carrier will typically go out and make sure that we get that appointment scheduled as soon as possible. And then they do continue to monitor the care. Obviously, all of this is working to get the employee back to work, either full capacity or some type of light duty capacity. And so once that is reached, I work with the employee and the supervisor, QBE, to make sure that the employee and all their restrictions are appropriate, and we have a place for them if they do need modified duty. If it's a longer term, a more serious situation where the employee perhaps maybe needs surgery and is going to be off for a while, just ensuring that after that surgery, they are getting all of their appointments in a timely manner. After each appointment, that updated medical status is reviewed to make sure that, their status, can they come back to light duty now or not? Ultimately, if it's in a situation where the employee is going to have any kind of permanent disability, then the carrier works to conduct a functional capacity evaluation. And then we determine if we're going to be able to bring that individual back with those permanent restrictions. And a lot of times we are able to, sometimes we're not. And then if we're not able to bring the individual back, then the carrier works with the employee to either get them into a vocational rehabilitation program where they train for a different career, or work with them on maybe going back to college, things like that.
Julie, what's our rate like compared to other organizations for the size of the employees we have, and how many have been out? And and maybe this is just, because I have several questions on this, maybe it's getting a memo to the board in detail, and I know, Karen, I don't know if this is an updated policy or not, but as far as light duty and when people come to work, this is very important, and that we have procedures and protocols and making sure those align too with our collective bargaining agreements. So I just want to make sure we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's, so to speak, Mr. CEO. So I appreciate the explanation. I don't know if the policy, if that's something that needs to be updated with the board, especially for the light duty provisions, but I just want to make sure that there's follow through and that we are on this as far as the timing and the medical care of our staff if there's injuries on the job. I'm trying to avoid injuries altogether.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So it's probably more of a technical information. So I won't belabor that today, but I just want to understand their role. And so Julie's working with this company.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments, questions?
There was a lot of discussion about that one at the finance committee.
Yes, it was.
So I know we'd like to have other, I mean, that says a lot, so I don't need to say it again, what we've got here, so. Anyway, we have a motion from the board. I'll make the motion. Okay, we have a motion, yeah, really. Okay, got a motion. Got a motion. And do we have a second?
Second.
Well, Steve, what?
I know.
All those in favor say aye.
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 If I could go on, our CEO has a conflict on, for our next, board meeting and wanted to see if it would be possible, he really wants to be here.
We still have to do.
If we could go
She will, she's just trying to get
the
this done.
following Friday, June 11th, does that work if we change the board meeting, with you guys?
Which day?
For June 11th, Friday, June 11th.
I'm good with that.
I mean, can I have flexibility as the chair to?
So instead of Thursday, Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so anybody out there, Trustee Sperber, Caroselli, Gianelli, Barahi, 11, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
Okay, all right,
I'm good with it.
9 a.m. All right,
All set.
you're welcome. Wait, I'm sorry, I think I skipped over, you're getting all excited. All right, so we've got 10.1. Does anyone have any questions on 10.1? Or should we just do a motion for approval for the air races?
Just one quick thing, I was just gonna say, I had a call the other day, a friend of mine, talking about this, and they were very excited, board member of air races, and they were very excited, so, good thing.
Great, all right, so I'm gonna go straight to a motion, who's gonna make it, Trustee Jay?
Yeah, I move to accept, board item 2105-22.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All right, congratulations, air races. And then item number 11, you have 2 minutes, CEO.
I'm sure I will do it 2 minutes. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, for my public safety update this month. No slides. And so I'm going to tell a real quick story since we are at the fire station. It's a good story. When I think about public safety, when we talk about it, we often talk about it in terms of the airport. But for all of us public servants, it's great when we have examples, when we exemplify public safety in our normal daily lives. So I want to tell a quick story about driver operator Bruce, is it Kajala?
Yes, sir. Bryce
Kajala. So I'm going to embarrass him for a second here. So this is a very recent story. While off duty at home, driver operator Bruce Kajala witnessed a smoke column coming from a home down his street. Without hesitation, he responded to that and arrived to find an elderly man in his backyard attempting to extinguish a fire that was consuming his entire fence and his shed. The man was being unsuccessful in his attempts. Bruce rushed into action and grabbed the hose from the gentleman and aggressively attacked the fire. Bruce extinguished the fence fire and then the shed. He then went on and overhauled the shed that was full of supplies. Overhaul must be a fire term for
Overhaul is when we make sure everything's completely out.
make sure it's completely out. Okay, great, thank you for standing here.
Yeah, got you on camera now.
So he then went on and overhauled the shed that was full of supplies. Driver operator Kajala successfully extinguished the fire, saving a brand new sailboat that was parked next to the shed. The man was understandably very thankful for that and expressed his thanks to Bruce. In addition to that, Reno Fire notified Captain Brian Comas of this incident. They expressed what a great job he did extinguishing the fire. Captain Comas spoke with Bruce and he gave the details of the incident. And this is a quote from Captain Comas. I'm very proud to serve in a department with firefighters like Ujala that when faced with an emergency, whether on duty or off duty, they spring into action to provide aid to their community. And I agree with Captain Comas. I'm proud to be part of an organization where we do that. Please join me in thanking.
Thanks, Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, Chief, President,
Great job. Great job. I'm sure that concludes my public safety report for this month.
So I think we've got one, I just want to say, we're going to open public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
Madam Chair, did you call the board comments and requests?
I think we did, board comments and requests for future agenda items, the concierge, or the concessionaires will be on. Anything else? Okay. And then we've got, public comment. Any public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Just quickly, I want to thank Marty for the IT and setting this all up today at the fire station and all the work IT department's done the past year during the pandemic. So thank you.
all my team.
Your whole team, you guys kept us going and just want to say thank you so much. Any other public comment? All right. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period, and I think one last motion. Motion to adjourn.
We don't need a motion.
Oh, okay. Fine.
Oh, so we,
All right. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
And CEO, we're going over to.
Yes, so we are now going to go to the bay. Sheriff's Plaza is going to swear in the fire chief. And then he is going to swear in all